What if there was a podcast that did it all? Sports, politics, world events. Well, that's what we've got. You're listening to C&C Talks.
Hello, I'm Colin.
And I'm Charlie.
Welcome to episode 3 of the C&C Talks podcast.
We release every Tuesday, and we talk about politics, world events, and sports.
Before we get into it, a quick reminder that we tape this the day before it's released, so this is up to date as of Monday, May 16th, 2022 at about 12 p.m. Pacific time. Let's get into it.
So, Mark Esper wrote a book about his time as defense secretary under Trump. And here are some of the claims he had. He wanted to shoot the peaceful protesters of the Black Lives Matter protests during June 2020. He also decided that he would like to fire missiles into Mexico to kill drug cartels. He thought that no one would notice. How?
How? I'm not going to pretend to understand how Donald Trump's brain works, but I have no clue how he thought no one would think that it was us, but it's another example of how he's just not fit to be commander-in-chief.
Yeah. Because none of that seems normal for a president of the United States.
I'll also add that Esper thought that Trump would attempt to carry out a military coup, which would have had massive problematic implications.
Well, and he almost did.
Yes, well, not really a military coup, but he almost carried out a coup.
That's true. So, if yet again we had those journalists a few weeks ago releasing info on McCarthy, if it wasn't a few weeks ago.
Yeah, those January 6th tapes from the New York Times.
So then it's happened again then, because Esper is now releasing information yet again, 2 years after.
Yeah, and I think that really is just a problem that this is only being released for book profits. If you have something important to say that's in the interest of the country, then don't wait to release it till you have a book deal. It's just highly unethical. Finally, a quick reminder, Mark Esper was fired very shortly after the 2020 election, probably because it was unclear whether he would go along with some of what Trump did. Trump did not think that he was loyal enough.
We also have some very unfortunate news out of Buffalo, New York. Colin, what do we have on that?
Yeah, so this weekend, Saturday, there was a shooting in Buffalo, killed 10 people. An 18-year-old teen is the suspect. Charlie, tell us some more.
It is believed that this attack was racially motivated. The attacker touted the Great Replacement theory, which is a theory that has heavily been promoted by Fox News and other hosts, such as Tucker Carlson.
Yeah, so tell us some more about that theory.
The theory is that white Americans are slowly being replaced by people that are in minorities, which, of course, is extremely easy to disprove, but it is still touted by some of these people, and even current politicians.
Yeah, so I think it's kind of safe to say that Fox helped incite the shooting, and I think what's really telling is that Fox continued to promote this theory even during their coverage of the shooting. And of course, mass shootings, a really big problem in America. It's just not acceptable. It was one of 4 shootings over the weekend.
Unfortunately, due to the current government, progress on gun reform is unlikely to continue due to the filibuster in the Senate, and Biden will travel to Buffalo on Tuesday.
Yeah, I also think it's important to note, so 13 people were shot. Only 10 of them died, but 13 people were shot. 11 of them were black. So, just pretty clearly a racially motivated attack.
In other political news, the January 6th committee has subpoenaed top House Republicans, Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, Andy Biggs, Joan Brooks, and Scott Perry, as well as several others.
Including Jim Jordan was another really big one there.
The committees, all of these people have repeated false claims of election fraud during the 2020 election. The committee's public hearings are less than a month away in June. Yeah,
make sure to watch for that. That's going to be a big deal, really. First big opportunity for the committee to present their findings to the American people, which could really potentially change public perception, especially ahead of the midterms.
The vote to codify Roe v. Wade failed in the Senate. the vote, the 60 votes were needed to pass because of the filibuster, and only 49 votes were given in support. Joe Manchin, who was elected as a Democrat, joined all 50 Republicans in opposing the bill. Colin has some other news on a comparison made by the Montana Senator Steve Daines.
Yeah, so this was during the debate on the vote to codify Roe v. Wade. Senator Steve Daines of Montana made a comment comparing abortion to sea turtle eggs. Let's play that clip for you now.
Take or destroy the eggs of a sea turtle. Now I said the eggs, not the hatchlings, that's also a penalty, but the eggs. The criminal penalties are severe, up to a $100,000 fine and a year in prison. Now why? Why do we have laws in place that protect the eggs of a sea turtle or the eggs of eagles? Because when you destroy an egg, you're killing a preborn baby sea turtle or a preborn baby eagle. Yet when it comes to a preborn human baby, rather than a sea turtle, that baby will be stripped of all protections in all 50 states under the Democrats' bill they'll be voting on tomorrow. Is that what the America the left wants?
Yeah, so obviously a lot to unpack there. If you look at it for more than even a few seconds, you can debunk pretty much everything he said. First of all, there's a difference between getting an abortion and having somebody else kill your baby. Second of all, they're eggs. They're not being carried inside the sea turtle. They're just eggs. The person does not have to go a whole ton of pregnancy, does not necessarily have to care for the baby afterwards. So it's just a comparison that does not hold up if you look deeply into it at all, and it's frankly kind of offensive to compare people to sea turtles.
Yes. I also real quickly just wanted to apologize for background noise. That usually doesn't happen, but I believe they're doing something with the dumpsters out front. So the Pennsylvania primaries were today, and in the Senate race, in the Democratic primary, John Fetterman is the front runner. He's the lieutenant governor. But he did happen to suffer a stroke over the weekend. He says his doctors say he's on the way to a full recovery, and he has no cognitive damage. Other candidates are Representative Connor Lamb, State Representative Malcolm Kenyatta, and others.
Yeah,
Let's
and
get Colin with the Republican primary.
so Democratic primary, as you can tell, full of clearly very qualified candidates. The Republican primary does not have a candidate with political experience in it.
Really?
Yeah, Dr. Oz is the front runner, and he's not even from Pennsylvania, first of all. He's from New Jersey.
Yep.
And some other candidates include Kathy Barnett and David McCormick. Kathy Barnett has been surging in the polls recently. She has some major issues, including saying that with abortion, that you shouldn't have an abortion. You should have to carry the baby to term even if you were raped, because her mom carried her to term when her mom was 11 years old and had been raped, which is just not an argument that I think is very good. Sure, maybe that was her choice, or maybe that wasn't even her choice. Maybe she wanted an abortion and was unable to get access to it.
So we've gotten news that Elon has said that he will let Trump back on Twitter. It was rumored that this was going to be the case. I believe we mentioned it in our first episode, but it is said that if the deal goes through, which there is actually some doubt of, he has said the purchase is on hold. He claims that it is because he wants assurance on how many bots are on Twitter, but more likely it's because of the stock and other financial concerns.
Yeah, I think that Tesla stock is down like 30% since the purchase announcement, which of course wipes out a large portion of his wealth.
Yes,
as
it does.
a big owner there. Now, to move on to the Russia-Ukraine war and some updates that are actually fairly good for Ukraine. Let's start with a potential NATO expansion, Charlie.
Yes. Finland could join NATO very soon, and Sweden has also stated that they are making efforts to join. Russia has warned dire consequences if they join.
Yeah, and actually, just breaking very recently, several countries, including the Baltic states, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, and the other Scandinavian countries, Denmark, Norway, Iceland have all said that they are in full support of the expansion. The legislatures of all of the current NATO countries would have to ratify them joining, and it looks like there is broad support across all the NATO countries.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like there would be any reason to not allow them.
Yeah. Some Senate Republicans have also just made a surprise visit to Ukraine, which included Mitch McConnell. And then in some only moderately relevant news, Ukraine has won the Eurovision Song Contest, which, if you don't know about it, is a big deal song contest in Europe.
Okay, well, yeah, if you'd like to learn more about that, we can, I guess include a couple of links in our description.
Yeah, okay.
Now on to sports. We have an NBA playoff update because the conference finals will be beginning tonight. The Mavericks play the Warriors in the Western Conference.
One of the big surprises of the second round was the Suns' collapse in Game 7 versus the Mavericks. They lost 123-90. So the best team from the regular season has been eliminated.
And they were down 40 at one point.
They were down at least 40 at one point. All right, let's bring in a couple friends here, Levi and Owen, to join the conversation on the NBA.
Hello, how are you doing? How are we doing?
Good.
Alright, so I'm going to be mediating this discussion because I know that you guys have very differing opinions on this. So, first question is, from the first round, who is to blame for the Nets getting eliminated in the first round?
I think Kyrie Irving did his thing. I mean, he might have caused a little bit of chemistry issues and some other stuff, but he really carried them through that. I think Kevin Durant kind of stalled, but I think he kind of stalled. That's my opinion. Owen, what do you think?
Well, I think, Kevin Durant was not playing amazing. I think Kyrie Irving did good, but also their lack of size, they gave up so much rebound, and that could be the cause of why they lost.
All right, so I think you're kind of missing the bigger picture, which is Kyrie Irving, remember, could not play the first half of the season. Likely cost them a much higher...
Whoa. Hey, they still made it to the playoffs and carried them through that. I don't know what you're talking about.
He could have cost them a much higher seed in the playoffs and potentially a much easier first-round matchup than Ben Simmons. I'm sorry, but he has a commitment to his team. He was, I guess you could say injured, maybe, not really. And especially, he wouldn't even show up for that final game. Like, be better. You have a commitment to your team.
Okay, so next question for you guys is about a team that didn't even make the playoffs, and that is what happened to the Lakers this season? Levi? Owen, I'll go to you, because Levi seems to have lost connection.
Well, the Lakers were just trying to build a team with the most superstars possible, and they had what looked like to be a stacked lineup, but the reality is the players didn't work well together, and they did not perform as well together, and they missed the playoffs because of that, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I at least feel like we probably should have seen this coming. I mean, they built their team with superstars, but those superstars all had injury problems or they were just getting old. And, of course, LeBron had a phenomenal season. But I feel like we should have seen it coming when you put a group of guys like that together. I don't know why we expected them to work well together in the first place.
And I want to just get some predictions for the conference finals. We start in the East. Celtics or Heat, and why?
Owen?
I think the Celtics, the way Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, and they're like a dynamic duo on the court, and they're very hard to stop. And also Marcus Smart is one of the best defenders in the league right now, and their defense is amazing, and their offense is also really good.
So, next question that I have for you is, for the Eastern Conference Finals, who's going to win between the Celtics and the Heat, and why?
I think it's the Celtics because Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are a really good duo. They work well together, and they're really hard to stop on the court. And also, they have Marcus Smart, which is one of the best defenders in the league right now. And the Heat are just an inconsistent team in general. And, yeah.
Yeah, so I agree with most of what you said, but I don't think that the Heat have gotten enough credit. They have quietly been among the best teams in the league this year. I am going to pick the Heat to win, but it's going to be a great series. I predict it will go 7 games.
It is a 1 seed against a 2 seed. So that should be a good matchup. And then in the West, an interesting matchup between the Mavericks and the Warriors. Again, I'm going to ask the question, who's going to win and why?
I think it's the Warriors. Lately the Warriors have been doing very well. They're like the Mavs. The build of their teams is really close together. They're really similar, but the Warriors is like the Mavs, but just better. Like, they both have good defense, and I think Jordan Poole has been doing really well lately, and he's a really good player for I think Warriors will win in 6.
All right.
Yeah, so I think another great matchup here. Anyone who's seen the first 2 episodes of this podcast knows that I'm a big Warriors fan, so get that biased part out of the way there. But as a Warriors fan, I worry about the series. The Mavericks did kind of beat up on the Warriors in the regular season, also took out the number 1 seed in the West. But I gotta go Warriors on this. They've just recently been playing the best basketball. They have, the emergence of Jordan Poole, obviously. Klay Thompson is back, really. It's clear. I think Curry's going to need to have a good series, but I think that the Warriors will get it done.
Actually, I wanted to give my opinion on this. I think the Warriors are probably the better team, but I'm thinking going into Game 1, momentum is definitely going to be with the Mavericks, who just, as you heard earlier, absolutely blew out the Suns the other day. I think they're going to win Game 1, and I think that it will go to Game 7, but I do think the Warriors are going to win that series.
All right. Well, Owen, thanks for stopping by the podcast, and Levi, we lost him, but thanks to him for stopping by as well.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So we have a Stanley Cup playoff update. 5 of the 8 first-round series went to the full 7 games. The second round is getting underway soon. The Blues are playing the Avalanche, the Lightning are playing the Panthers, the Rangers are playing the Hurricanes, and the Oilers are playing the Flames. We have some soccer news.
Yeah, so from the FA Cup, which is the one of the knockout tournaments in England soccer, the final, Liverpool beat Chelsea. It was 0-0 after 120 minutes, so overtime. Then it went to a penalty shootout, much like the League Cup did back a couple months ago between these same 2 teams. It was 6-5 after 7 shots. Liverpool got the upper hand, which means that they have already won 2 trophies this year, with potentially more on the way. They're in the finals of the Champions League. Now let's move on to the NFL schedule release, Charlie.
So the NFL released their schedule this week. We have some schedule highlights, including the Thanksgiving games, and we have several international games this year. In Week 4, we have the Vikings and the Saints playing in London. In Week 4, the next week, we have the Giants and the Packers in London. And in Week 7, we have the Broncos and Jaguars in London. In Munich, the game in Germany, we have the Seahawks and the Buccaneers.
By the way, first ever game of the NFL in Germany. That's must watch.
And then we have the 49ers and Cardinals playing in Mexico City in Week 11.
So Monday Night Football. In Thanksgiving games, Bills-Lions for all that are interested in watching the Lions suck again. And the Giants-Cowboys and the Patriots-Vikings.
And then for Christmas games, we have the Packers playing the Dolphins and the Broncos playing the Rams.
Yeah. Some other top highlights. The Bills-Rams game kicks off the season from Los Angeles. That's the ring game. The Rams will get their Super Bowl rings, raise the banners. Thursday, September 8th at 5:20 Pacific time.
Some other highlights of the year are the first Monday night game of the year is Broncos and Seahawks with the return of Russell Wilson to Seattle. And what is possibly the game of the year in terms of rematches, we have the Bills and Chiefs playing Sunday, October 16th at 1:25 p.m. Pacific. If you'll remember, last year in the divisional round, that game went to overtime with the Chiefs pulling out the win.
What a game, by the way.
That was
Those
a great
last
game.
2 minutes.
Yes.
That was something special. 25 points in the final 2 minutes of regulation, including that drive down the field for a field goal in 13 seconds by Patrick Mahomes.
And we have some more pretty incredible news out of the MLB from the Los Angeles Angels.
Yeah, so the Angels threw the first no-hitter of the MLB season. Actually, sorry, second no-hitter of the MLB season, but the first one that was by a single player. The Mets also threw a combined no-hitter between, I believe, 5 pitchers. But
And didn't the Pittsburgh just get one against the Reds?
No, the Reds.
No.
The Reds kind of got one against Pittsburgh.
Kind of got one, but they lost.
But they lost.
So does it not count them?
It doesn't technically count because the bottom of the ninth never happened.
So they allowed no hits, but they still lost.
So they only pitched 8 innings. You have to get 27 outs. But
Ah.
this Angels no-hitter is thrown by Reed Detmers, who, by the way, is a rookie. Absolutely
Wow.
crazy. Is against the Tampa Bay Rays. The Angels win 12-0, and some other amazing moments of that game is Brett Phillips, a position player for the Rays, pitched when they were down by a lot, and Anthony Rendon, the third baseman for the Angels, homered against him, but he homered left-handed against him. Now, Rendon is normally a right-handed hitter, so it's kind of unbelievable, honestly.
Moving on to something not as good, the current state of MLB umpiring. We have had what can only be described as an absolutely disastrous year of umpiring so far this year, which has proved very costly to teams in many situations, and in some situations, making calls that decide the game.
Yeah, I would kind of argue that also in some ways, the umpires, when a player isn't happy, then the umpires may kind of take some revenge. So what are some possible solutions to this problem, Charlie?
Well, one of the solutions that has been stated several times is the possible institution of robot umpires. So what did you think if those were added?
I think that it would ultimately be helpful. It's not a step that I want to see taken, but at the same time, I think it's necessary in order to show the fairness of the game. There have been several games that have just been decided by bad umpiring, and that's just not fair.
I think bad umpiring in some instances, like very rarely, like I know because when I used to play, it would be so cool when like you knew you got away with something a little bit, but if that happens too often, it can ruin the game. But like, if it doesn't happen a lot, I think the regular human umpires are fine. Going to robot umpires is stuff that I really don't think should be done unless it is absolutely necessary.
Yeah, and I would argue that it is. We're almost at the end of our time, but really quickly, big story in golf. Phil Mickelson is withdrawn from the PGA Championship. The PGA Championship, obviously one of golf's 4 majors, the second of the year. It starts this Thursday, where Mickelson is actually the defending champion. Last year, he was the oldest person to ever win a major. His withdrawal is coming at the same time as his comments about the Saudi tour are under fire, which is just this disastrous thing. We don't really have time to do a deep dive into that, but I highly suggest you go look at that.
And it looks like yet again we are out of time. I would like to yet again thank our entire crew, Morris, our producer, Drake, our co-writer, and Zack, our co-producer.
As well as our guests, of course, Owen and
As well as
Levi.
our guest.
Make sure you subscribe, everyone, and submit your questions if you go to anchor.fm/CC Talks.
Just one last reminder, we release episodes every Tuesday. I'm Charlie.
I'm Colin. Thanks for listening, and goodbye.